As a man, when you open up the body and create certain connections throughout your system, then essentially the entire body becomes an extension of your penis, which means that the whole body becomes an erogenous zone. Plus, when you do this, you will reach incredible levels of ejaculation control and have the ability to have full body orgasms over and over without ejaculating. I know it may sound too good to be true, but this is what happens when you train in sexual kung fu. Let's get into it. My name is Jonathan White, and I've helped thousands of men from around the world learn to retrain their mind and body to last as long as they want in bed, experience multiple non-ejaculatory orgasms, and go into sex feeling calm and confident. Make sure you hit subscribe to stay notified when new content like this is released, and make sure you get my free ejaculation control ebook through the link in the video description below, which will help you take your bedroom game to the next level. In this video, I'm going to break down certain anatomical connections that are conducive to moving sexual energy throughout the body. You're going to learn the major hot points that tend to be blocked for men, which causes premature ejaculation, how opening these up will help you develop your ejaculation control and experience full body orgasms. Then you're going to learn how the mind interacting with the body starts to develop chi and develop this intensified connection of opening certain hot spots in the nerves, which turn your body into a sexual energy pump. And then you're going to learn how putting this all together allows you to fully circulate sexual energy throughout your body, giving you complete ejaculation control and amazing experiences of non-ejaculatory orgasm. Sound good? And I should first mention that things were not very clearly laid out for me. When I started learning sexual kung fu 12 years ago, I was learning from some books and some articles, and first it was like, you just gotta move your sexual energy through the energy channels, which, I talk about all the time as well, but it was very vague on how to actually do that in the beginning. And I developed a lot of skill, but once I started working with men, especially where men were having a lot of trouble developing ejaculation control and experiencing this full body pleasure, I had to dive much deeper into my training to learn more about the physical anatomy, because it's easy to get really woo-woo with this stuff, talking about energy and channels, but there's certain physical things that must be in place for this to work at its higher level, and it's important to understand that. So first, to kind of set the stage for what you're going to learn, it's important to understand the current model that you're in, because the current model for most men is to only be stuck experiencing ejaculatory orgasms and not having ejaculation control. All right. So the first thing is, like, when you're having sex, there's sexual stimulation, there's friction being generated by, maybe it's your partner's body parts, maybe it's your hand, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, you know what I'm saying? It's up for you to decide. But signals are going from the penis, all right? And they're moving through the nerves. The signals are going back and forth from the brain. But for most men, there's a huge constriction in this lower region. And this area is basically, it's bottlenecked, it's stuck. Sexual sensations cannot move really beyond the penis and the pelvic floor for most men. And so this is all the space you have to hold this buildup of nervous system excitement, sexual energy. And so eventually it builds up to a maximum point and you blow pretty quickly for a lot of men. And so the only way for the pressure to release is outwards. Well, in sexual kung fu, what we're doing is we're eliminating these restrictions so that now when sexual pleasure is moving, it's able to move beyond just the lower region. It's able to move into your entire body, up the spine, into the brain, resonating through your whole body. And by doing this, you're no longer limited by time or amount of pumps, amount of thrusts. You literally can last as long as you want when you have this in place, opening up the body. And this is also how you start to experience full body orgasms, because now this nervous system information, sexual pleasure is freely flowing through your entire body. Your whole spine becomes an extension of your cock. And there's no limit to the pleasure or the duration of the sex you're having, all right? So this is what we're moving into. And now I'm gonna explain more, how do we actually do that, all right? We're gonna look at 3 hot spots in the body right now. These are the 3 most important, both physical locations. They also happen to be powerful energy gates as well in sexual energy cultivation practice. So the first area is the pelvic floor. And I'll refer to this as Huyin, which is an energetic gate. But really we're talking about this whole pelvic floor region, the base of the torso. This is the #1 problem area for men. This is the main one to open up, and it may take some time for a lot of you. It took me, a little while to open this area up. The first issue is that there's a lot of tension in this area. As men in the modern world are very stressed, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of factors. The pelvic floor tends to be very tense and constricted. It's simply an area where we hold stress. And now what makes this even worse is when sexual experts recommend doing Kegel exercises. When you understand how the pelvic floor works and the physiology of this, you will quickly realize that this is a stupid idea. Stupid idea. When you have this chronic layers of tension in the pelvic floor, which most men have, it's causing a lot of constriction. The pelvic floor is a huge plexus of nerves and blood vessels. That's kind of what I was trying to demonstrate this diagram. There's all these nerves, all these blood vessels flowing down through your pelvic floor to feed the testicles, the prostate, the penis. And when your pelvic floor is tense, it's tight, it's constricting both the flow of blood, which means weaker erections and weaker testicle function. Your testicles are your sperm and hormone producing factories. You definitely want all the circulation down there you can get. But also there's a constriction in the nerves. And what's happening is that, the brain is communicating with the genitals. For example, when you're having sex, there's two different possibilities, right? If this area is open, if this whole pathway is open, the brain's getting a broad spectrum of communication from the genitals. It's like there's a whole rainbow of colors. Like, yeah, there's the blue, there's the red, there's the purple, everything. Whereas when your pelvic floor is tight and constricted, you're choking the nerves and the blood vessels. It's like the brain's only seeing this bright red color. It's getting a very limited signal. And that signal's saying, oh shit, we're sexually stimulated. We gotta ejaculate in about, 20 seconds. Because that signal is dominant through the tension pathway, which is your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. Sex is linked with stress and tension, which means you can only ejaculate, essentially, from that limited signal going to the brain. When we can open up the huyin, the pelvic floor region, free it up, of course, blood flow increases, but most importantly, the nerves can freely communicate. Your parasympathetic nervous system can freely communicate, which means that now your brain, once again, is getting this full spectrum of pleasure signals from the pelvic floor. It's no longer just this urgent, shit, we gotta ejaculate quick. It's more of a wavy, spacious, oh, that feels good. I'm enjoying this. This is an orgasmic buildup, but it's not out of control, and I can relax my pelvic floor. The basis of all this is if you can keep your pelvic floor relaxed, completely relaxed during sex, you will not ejaculate, period. So huyin, major focal point. Now another important area here is basically the sacrum and the tailbone area, which is the Wei Lu energy gate. Another area that tends to be really locked up with men, but at least, if you can get the pelvic floor open, that's gonna be the main issue when it comes to ejaculation control. But the Wei Lu is also extremely important for getting your sexual energy to move up the spine. When there's obstruction here, again, there's not a proper communication in the nerves, and you're gonna have a hard time feeling pleasure anywhere other than the genitals. Whereas once this sacrum area opens up, you're gonna start feeling pleasure in your lower back. Maybe all the way up the spine into the brain. Instead of just being limited down here, it is able to move and expand. It's almost like we're extending our cock, okay? We're extending our awareness of sexual pleasure beyond just the penis and deeper into the body. The more of these gates we open up, the deeper it goes. So sacrum, Wei Lu, very important area. I'm gonna talk more about how to open these up. And you may have heard the term sacral pump, or maybe you haven't. It's commonly used within these practices, but what's not common is how to actually do it properly. Because the sacrum does function as a pump, both pumping cerebrospinal fluid up the spine, but once you get it open and pulsating energetically, I'm not talking about physically, physically releasing it is important, but energetically, once the sacrum starts to get online and pulsate, it's gonna easily start pumping your sexual energy, pumping your pleasure up your spine. Feels absolutely incredible. All right, and then we have number 3, the jade pillow. This is basically where the spine meets the skull, right in the back of the head here. Another important zone, major plexus of nerves here. Also, it's kind of the top end of that spinal pump. Sacrum's the bottom end. The jade pillow, has a strong connection to that. And when these two are communicating, well, really all 3 of these, that's when you're gonna have profound levels of sexual energy pumping, moving through your spine, up into your brain and back and forth. When you get all these gates open and sexual energy floods into the brain, when it's hitting your brain when you're having sex, it's an incredible sensation. It's quite euphoric. It can even become very psychedelic. Now, of course, the whole spine, we want to have open to some extent. They say that you're only as young as your spine is flexible, but I don't have, we're not going to go through every single vertebrae in this video. We'll be here all day. But these are the most important areas. But in general, you want to focus on, opening up the spine, having a nice fluid, flexible spine. If your spine's really stuck because you don't move, you don't use it, it's not flexible and fluid, you want to change that. Start moving it. So now let's talk a little bit about there's the physical process of opening, which is the release of constrictions and the mobilization of your tissues. You want your tissues, your muscle, your fascia to be mobile to some extent. Mobile meaning that it functions the way it's supposed to function. It moves when it needs to, and for a lot of people, what happens is things get stuck. The tissue grips and does not let go. And because of this, it creates a constriction. Blood cannot flow freely. The nerves cannot properly communicate. This full body pump will not work as effectively. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. Obviously, you want to have things you're doing yourself. Any sort of body movement practice that opens up these regions, something like yoga, basic stretching. Qigong practices can be very helpful for this, depending on, which ones you're doing, Tai Chi, things like that. That's a big focus of sexual kung fu, is different Qigong practices. Also doing trigger point release, getting a lacrosse ball or something and massaging these areas to help open them up. Obviously being very careful with the back of the head. Or getting some body work done, having a good massage therapist, getting some fascia release work, things like that. Even acupuncture can help physically open up and release obstructions from these areas. And just having body awareness of am I gripping, especially the pelvic floor and to some extent the abdomen as well, various regions of the body. Am I just constantly gripping, holding tension there? And that takes some awareness because most men don't realize that they're constantly gripping their pelvic floor all day long. It took me a long time to realize, damn, I'm doing a Kegel all day. The next level of this is bringing the mind into the body, absorbing the mind into the body. This is where we get into the Neigong, the internal skill of it. Because when the mind interacts with the body, this is when Qi starts to be developed. An obvious example of this is if you hold out a hand in front of you, just very gently open the palm and bring your mind inside of your hand. It's like you're filling up every cell of your hand with your mind, like liquid filling up a sponge. Just feel that. Notice how your palm starts to feel more alive. You start to feel tingles and buzzes, maybe, depending how sensitive your mental connection to your body is. If you spend an hour doing this, you'd probably start to feel a lot of things happening. And then just let go of that. And now feel both hands. Just notice. Notice the difference in the one that you started with. It probably feels a lot more alive, a little more buzzy, more blood flow. So that's basically what we're doing. You absorb the mind into the body. So these points, as I mentioned, each of them is an important plexus of nerves. It's a point where a lot of nerves and blood vessels are moving through. And they're also important energy gates. Specifically, these are ones that have a strong radiating effect, meaning that when you open them up and activate them, it causes energy, Qi, to move strongly to surrounding areas. So it opens up a lot of different parts of the body just by focusing on that one area. So what you're going to do is practice really bringing your mind within the body in these energy points. A simple way to do this would be to just sit down, even for 5 minutes. You can do more than that, or just throughout the day, but definitely try doing 5 minutes, absorbing your mind into the pelvic floor region, just like you did into your hand, like liquid into a sponge. Just feel it for a couple minutes. Then absorb your mind into the sacrum, the tailbone and that sacrum region. Just really absorb the mind into there. And then absorb the mind into the jade pillow. And then you can practice having all three at once absorbed. So there's a process in the internal arts known as Yi Jin Jing. There's a lot of different interpretations of what the Yi Jin Jing is, but definitely an aspect of it is the fact that as the mind interacts with the body through consistent training, like specifically really getting the mind into the body, it starts to change the physical tissues, starts to change the nerves, change the fascia tissue very much so as well. And really, any muscles, bones, tendons, ligaments, whatever, everything the mind can be absorbed to and will affect energetically, but some things like nerves and fascia tend to be more conducive to this process. And basically what happens is over time, as the interaction between mind and body gets stronger, more Qi starts to develop, and those regions also start to fill up more with Qi. They get puffier. There's this feeling of inflation, this very tangible process that happens as your energy fills up your body. But basically, the more your mind interacts with these areas, this is a Neigong process, the more that these will start to energetically engage. You may feel vibrations or pulsations. To me, these regions pulse and they pump. And while you're having sex with your partner or your hand, or maybe you sat on your hand for 5 minutes and it went numb, then it feels like someone else's hand with a stranger, you know what I'm saying? While absorbing your mind into these regions and they start to come alive, it's going to create a very different experience of sex. you're gonna find that these energy gates naturally over time start to pump your sexual energy through them. I mean, first just the focal point, because when you're just focused on your penis and like, you know, just the pleasure happening there during sex, where the mind goes, the chi flows. Once you start incorporating these other areas, again, it's almost like they become an extension of your penis. You'll start to feel them subtly, you'll start to feel something eventually. It'll take some time, definitely, but eventually you'll start to feel them open up and activate, and it's gonna create a very different experience. Definitely of your pleasure, and overall, you're gonna start having more of this full body waves of pleasure instead of just this sharp genital pleasure that builds to ejaculation. It's gonna be a very different dynamic. So practice, you know, you're having sex, you're masturbating, whatever, get your mind in these regions, these three hot spots. You can move between them, and then where this goes eventually, once you've developed this strong, you know, you're physically opened up and you can get your mind into these regions of the body, the next quality is one of basically using your intention. You use your yi, your intention to, we could say, manipulate or maybe encourage the sexual energy to move in different ways. Because after a period of training, really strengthening this process, you simply move your mind and the energy will follow. It's almost this feeling of like, as if there was water in your genitals and the mind's just scooping it up the spine. Just this movement of your mind is all that really takes to move your sexual energy. Eventually. It's not gonna be like that in the beginning for most people. It's a process. I'll share some examples of like, when I'm having sex now, in fact, just this morning, let's have a nice morning session. About 30 or 40 minutes in, there's a lot of sensation that's been built up over quite a lot of time. And I don't need to do anything drastic anymore because I've got this whole process going. So all I had to do was, I took a deep breath and just move my awareness. And for me, there's a suction that's created now. There's a suction I can create in my spine internally. It's kind of hard to describe, other than like my spine feels like a straw because I've done this work so much. I take a deeper breath, sweep my mind. I feel these points, especially the sacrum, really buzzes for me now. And just sweep my mind up. And then there's this wave of pleasure moving through my body. It hits my brain. I go into a state of orgasm. It feels somewhat similar to like when you hit the ejaculation, just this primal, intense, like, oh my God. It was kind of like that, but different. And, you know, several ways of that hit me. I'm enjoying it. And then, whoa, I'm fully under control. There's no ejaculation in sight. All right, let's keep going. And also, every sensation was intensified because it just really opens up my circuitry doing that. You know, you get a good pump of sexual energy and then everything's heightened and my whole body just felt orgasmic and buzzing. Fantastic. So I don't have to do anything drastic. That's what it looks like for me now. Mostly when I'm having sex, I just stay relaxed, I'm breathing, and I'm very casually using my mind to create the energy flow. But it didn't always look like that. Like again, when I first started this training, you know, 12 years ago, learning from books and like, you know, internet articles, whatever I could find, trying to piece things together and tensen up muscles and trying to force the energy up. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And those of you who've taken my Multi-Orgasmic Man program, you know that, you know, we have a whole systematized, organized approach to making this whole process happen over time. But what I found was that doing a lot of Qigong practice, really focusing on Qigong, especially, you know, the forms that I teach in the sexual Kung Fu system, it opens up this whole process. And then when you go to have sex, it's all there and it's just happening, you know, over time. It's a process. And so that's what worked really great for me. It works well for many, many, many other men who've been through the system as well. They'll tell you about it. And that's pretty much it. And again, those of you who've taken Multi-Orgasmic Man, you know that the dragon breathing process really amps up, gets this whole thing pumping at once. Plus, you know, there's some other things incorporated that, you know, are beyond what I've talked about in this video, but you know, that's what we use in sexual Kung Fu. But practical starting point, again, I want you to have something really implementable. So what I recommend that you do now is watch a video I made that's going to teach you how to pump sexual energy up the spine. So it's going to give you a specific practice you can use. And when you implement what you learned into this video, it's going to get you, well on the playing field to get the stuff working. So check that out next. There's a link to that. And again, if you're serious about this, I highly encourage you to go through the sexual Kung Fu system because I teach this whole process in great depth and far beyond what, I've been talking about in this video. If you're in it, go all the way. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to make more videos on getting this sacral and spinal pump happening in the body. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button. And again, get my free ejaculation control ebook. There's a link in the video description. It's gonna give you techniques that will support your process of developing powerful ejaculation control. Wishing you the best on your journey of sexual mastery, my friend. Have a great day.